Shalom, shalom. First off, I want to start out by giving all the glory, infinite praise, and honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rahakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone that do rule and teach well. Peace, love, and salutation to the hopeful elect that is out there pushing his truth in all sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth, giving diligence to make your calling and election sure. Shalom. This is your brother Hashah from the Great Millstone Savannah Camp, coming back in the spirit with another lesson. Lord willing, I pray and hope that it is edifying and exhorting. All right, and as you can see, this is from Politico. All right, and I'm only gonna read the title for just for time's sake. All right, it says Taiwan reports large-scale Chinese military aircraft presence near island. All right, so as we all know, there's a war taking place between the United States, Israel, and Iran. All right, which is directly affecting the Chinese economy. All right, their ability to get oil through the Strait of Hormuz. Since this war started, which I think it started in February, there's been little to no ships going through the Strait of Hormuz. I think for really like 2 weeks, and it's caused the price of gas to increase. All right, and it's hurting not only the Chinese economy, but it's hurting the global economy, and it's also hurting the United States, because that is a major trade route for oil. I think 40% of all global oil imports comes through the Strait of Hormuz. So while that is taking place, all right, which is really a strategic move by the United States to cripple the Chinese economy, right? The Chinese are eyeing Taiwan, all right? And this is just another way that this could be biblical prophecy. Okay, that this is showing you that we're in a time of biblical prophecy. All right, and this is matter of fact, before I get that, I want to start. I asked ChatGPT, I said, did the Roman Empire fall because they were spread too thin? It says, yes, being spread too thin was one of the major reasons the Roman Empire eventually collapsed, but it wasn't the only cause. Historians usually say the fall resulted in several pressures happening at the same time. Here are the main ones. Overexpansion. Being spread too thin at its height under Trajan, around 117 AD, the empire stretched from Britain to the Middle East and from North Africa into Europe. This created problems, extremely long borders to defend, right? And we know that the United States, has extremely long borders, right? And during the Democratic reign of Joe Biden, right, the borders were opened. It says armies were stationed far away from Rome and often became loyal to their generals instead of the state, right? And we're hearing reports that soldiers are revolting in these Middle Eastern countries, right, and leaving or refusing to fight this war for Israel. Okay, it says supplying troops and governing distance province became expensive and slow. Because of this, Rome had to constantly fight along frontiers like Roman Germanic wars and defend borders like the Danube frontier. All right, economic problems. We know that this is still taking place in America, right? Political instability is taking place. And then you have the invasions, which they're saying that sleeper cells are here, right? So this is all happening now. And then it says the division, right? The division between the Western and the Eastern Roman Empire, which we know was, largely credited to, Jake, all right, the so-called Negroes in that region, right? Separating and creating the Byzantine Empire, right? So it says, in short, yes, being spread too thin was a major factor because it made Rome harder to defend and govern, but the empire really fell due to a combination of overexpansion, economic troubles, political chaos, and invasions. All right. And basically we know that Babylon the Great, all right, as it's called in the scriptures, is America. Okay, and America has military bases in thousands upon thousands, in a lot of countries. Matter of fact, let's see. Let's see. How does this compare to America? And it's over. I'm going to just say, how does it compare to America? All right. Let's see. Yep. It says global military presence, right? The U.S. has hundreds of overseas bases across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, right? Both powers had to spend massive resources maintaining security far from the center of power. And we know that, basically the center of power for the beast is Washington, right? Washington, D.C., the Vatican, and Rome, and London, all right, which is their economic center, okay? And, these areas are vast. They're, widespread. A lot of them are unwalled, okay? And they are huge targets, all right? And defending all these places is expensive. I think the just in the past month, they spent like 2.3 billion or $1 trillion on this war. All right, so we know that that's gonna strain. All right. It says Rome faced inflation, heavy taxes, and currency debasement. That's going on right now, right? Political division, right? U.S. people in the U.S. people often point to strong political polarization, government gridlock, declining trust in institutions, and that's taking place right now. People are not trusting the government, especially with these files that just dropped, right? Cultural influence. The United States has spread culture globally, right? And this is that wine that the scripture speaks about, right? Companies like Apple, Google, and Netflix export American culture worldwide. Social media platforms, Hollywood, tech companies. Right? But, that's basically the point, right? And if China makes an advance, all right, toward Taiwan, you could see the United States enter into a two-front war because they are allies of Japan, right? Not, really not by choice, all right, but by circumstance, okay? So I want to get this one right here. This is Psalm 37, And 35, it says, I have seen the wicked in great power and spreading himself like a green bay tree, right? Now let's search what a green bay tree looks like. All right. Green bay tree. Okay. So this is a green bay tree. It's a big tree. Okay. Some of them get big, right? So it's basically a metaphor, right? For them spreading themselves, man, all over the world. Okay. And that's gonna cause a lot of ripples and divisions. There's a lot of military bases that have to be defended. All right. And then you have to defend your homeland as well. All right. You have to defend your political interests. All right. You have to defend your economic interests, your religious interests, in these different regions that you're in. So it's going to cause, ultimately, we know that there's going to be a draft. There's going to be a military draft of some sort, right? And also, all right, it's going to cause, a very much so weakened front, because you have to spread, your military out across all these regions, right? Especially during a world war. Verse 36, it says, yet he passed away, and lo, he was not. Yeah, I sought him, but he could not be found. So we know that, through him spreading himself across the world, his end is imminent, right? And we know that this is talking about the so-called white man, the wicked, and his desire, right, is as hell. This is Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 4. It says, behold, his soul, which is lifted up, is not upright in him, but the just shall live by faith. And this is talking about Esau, Edom, right? The wicked, his soul that's lifted up in him is not upright. It's not righteous. Okay. It says, yeah, also because he transgressed by wine, right? That wine, that philosophy, all right, which can also be, predicated to culture, right? Has, caused him to transgress, right? And he spread it all across the world. It says he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home. He can't keep at home, right? His military bases, his embassies, his central banks are all over the world, in every country, right? It says neither keepeth at home who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto himself all nations, and heapeth unto himself all peoples, right? So this is what the so-called white man has done, right? Verse 6, it says, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe unto him that increaseth that which is not his, how long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay, going into that debt, right? But he increaseth that which is not his, right? Going in these different countries, Venezuela, being the latest, and taking over, and just, raping and ravaging the resources, right? And, what it's going to lead to ultimately is, pride, right? What it's led to is his pride, and his pride is going to deceive him, as the scriptures say, man. And that division, right, is going to cause him to fall, man. Let's get that. Because you have some soldiers that, they're ready to fight and die. And then you have soldiers who don't want to fight and die for this man's interests, for the small hat interests, for their country, for oil, for these rich, billionaires and trillionaires, right? Fighting these wars, man. Okay. It says, and, this is, for context sake, all right, Yahushua was, casting out devils and demons from people, All right, and then we're accusing him of himself being Beelzebub, which is the king of the demons. Right, he was called king of the demons, lord of the flies. All right, but they accuse Yahushua of being that, right? But this is what Yahushua said unto them, right? Um, Matthew 12:25, it says, and Yahushua knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city and house divided against itself shall not stand. And if Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then shall his kingdom stand, right? So how is Esau, Edom's kingdom going to stand with all this division, right? With them being spread through thin, with them being politically divided, it's not going to work. And eventually it's going to all crumble and fall. And we're praying that Yahweh Shem Yahushai bring a swift end to the so-called white man's rulership, to his reign of terror on the earth, man. Because, in order for our kingdom to be set up, right, the kingdom of righteousness, the kingdom of Yahushua to be set up on the earth, he has to go down, man. And this is what is going to make the earth a better place, man. It's going to bring about peace on the earth. So we have to let the so-called white man, play out his rulership, right? And, do his thing, destroy, steal, kill, and destroy the way he does. All right. And ultimately, Yahushua is going to bring him down to the ground. Okay. Where he belongs, man. So I just want to do this quick lesson. Lord willing, it was edifying, exhorting. I'm going to end off by giving all the glory, infinite praise, and honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace, love, and salutation to the hopeful elect. Shalom.